Good morning. This is Dr. Bill Williams from Atlanta, Georgia. We are in the middle of our podcast day. So I want to bring on my next guest on the Influencers podcast. That would be a good friend of mine, Steve Parker from the Profitable Dentist magazine. Steve and I go way back, 10 or 15, 20 years in dentistry. And so I'm glad to bring him here to the show, the Influencer podcast, because you know what? This guy influences a lot of dentists, a lot of people around the world. So welcome to our podcast, Steve.
Thank you, Dr. Bill. I'm thrilled to be on here. We've known each other a long time. Watched this industry kind of bump its way along. Some things are better, some things are not so good. But dentistry is, I think, one of the greatest professions anybody can get into, especially today.
I heard it was the number one profession so many times as I was going through my 46 years. And I tend to agree. If somebody wants to rank us as the most desired profession to be in, I'm not going to argue because it's been great for me and great for so many of my friends to live the life of in medicine, but have the freedom, the autonomy to be your own boss, and that's the secret to dentistry. And the Profitable Dentist magazine was actually a big part of what I was about, learning how to be a good businessman as well as a good dentist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you have to. That's sort of the interesting thing about dentistry is there's an assumption when you're in dental school that you're going to be an entrepreneur, that you're going to own your own business. And that is, you just don't find that anywhere else. If you get an accounting degree, nobody says, "Hey, can't wait to see you with your own firm." If you get a law degree, very, very few, single-digit percentage actually open their own office. But with dentistry, it's about 84%. So there is just a strong assumption you're going to own the practice just by virtue of getting a dental degree.
Well, Steve, I know you came out of another profession and entered into the dental profession through the lab business, and then into consulting, and then into being an editor for one of the major magazines in dentistry. Tell us how that happened and what inspired you to do this.
That is a great question. I have never, well, I almost lied to you. I've worked for somebody for 3 years in my life. And it was because I sold a company to them. And part of our arrangement was I stayed around. They wanted me to stay 7 years. I wanted to stay a couple of months. They wanted 5. I said, okay, 6 months. And then we sort of haggled to 3 years. And I enjoyed it. But it reinforced that I'm not a good employee. I'm a builder. So I like to build things. I don't like to run things. So I'm the kind of guy who gets a dental practice off the ground. I'm not good at the day-to-day once it's running. There are people who are really, really, really good at that. And those are the kind of people that I try to hire and support and nurture. And they're the ones that run the businesses. But so you're spot on. I sold a telecommunications infrastructure company. So I was in the utility power business, telecommunications infrastructure. Next natural progression, of course, is dentistry. So I had a good friend from college whose wife was a dentist, and I had retired, air quotes, sold my business, and I said, I'm going to do something next. I didn't know what it was. I tend to believe, sometimes you build the plane while you're taking off, and I just figure it'll work out. I'm not sure what it'll be, but it'll work out. And so he said, his wife was a dentist, and he said, you know what you need to do next? You need to do dental labs. He said, all I know is his wife, Sarah, is the dentist. He said, all I know is Sarah hates them all and they're too expensive. So if anybody can get a handle on dental labs, it's you. So I started to buy dental labs and aggregate them. Didn't even know what a dental lab was. Had a good run. I still own some dental labs. Loved the business. Very good people. A lot like dentistry. It's a cottage industry. It's still largely a single owner who's the number one technician, we'll call it. If you've ever read the E-Myth, the technician is the person who does the work, the plumber or the candy store maker or the dentist. And out of that came consulting, because I had a lot of dentists who owed me a lot of money and couldn't pay their lab bill, which I couldn't understand. So I helped them get the ability to pay their lab bill and their rent and the supply people and stay in business. And out of that, I met a lot of consultants who said, you guys, you do this way better than me. You love it. I like the building, not the running. So I handed a lot of that off. Met Dr. Woody Oakes, who had started the Profitable Dentist, Excellence in Dentistry, Destin Spring Break Seminar, a lot of the foundational things in practice management and dentistry, over 30 years. And I worked with him for a few years to really learn what he knew and kind of dig into the DNA of the company. And that's where we are today. Even though we're moving into the 21st century, we still hang on to a lot of our old, for lack of a better term, the fabric of what made us as big as we are. We still stick with that.
Well, I remember Woody, and I remember going down to the Destin spring break things, and it was a foundational part of dentistry for us back then. And I'm glad you took over the reins when Woody gave it up. And there had to be a failure story that really spurred you on to move you into this position. What was it, and how did you recover?
Failure story. Wow. Bill, I've never failed. So this is a thing I tell my kids, and have. We have things that didn't go the way we planned. Now we can define those as a failure, or we can define those as a really painful learning experience. So yes, I've had painful learning experiences. I always tell my kids, don't lose the lesson, that you can learn something from everything that happens, even if what you learned is don't do that again. And why did it fail? I didn't plan adequately. I didn't prepare. I was getting into something I really didn't know. I got into it with a hope that it would work out, as opposed to building the foundation for it to work out. And I'm, entrepreneurially, I think that is a mindset you have to get into. I always say, again, I say, always be curious, always try to learn. You're going to learn something from everything. What you might learn is that was stupid and I should have done it. Figure out why, resolve not to do it again, and then just move on, move forward. But you can't be a business owner without having something that doesn't go the way you planned, and sometimes spectacularly the way you planned. So I've made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, made a lot of money again. And the fundamentals of that are just, who you are. But get up every day and look for that next thing. And I think it's knowing, it's knowing who you are. But I've had things that didn't go the way I planned, but I think I do a pretty good job of very quickly saying, okay, I grew up on a farm, Bill. So, why did I fall off that horse? Because I wasn't paying attention. He got away from me. There's 100 things. Don't do it again. And it didn't happen again. And I think where dentists struggle in this business as practice owners is they see failure where it's really lessons. They didn't go to business school. They went to dental school, and they beat themselves up over the business failure when really it is a great learning experience. So, I don't know if that's, I've got a long list of things that I tend to learn from, forget, move on, and don't hang on to.
I think that's a good answer. And you applied that personally to your situation. And I like the way you didn't say you failed. You only learned from things that didn't work the way you first planned it.
Things are not going to work every day, every single day. And I've just seen people beat themselves up. I've seen a lot of dentists whose business went under, and they feel like they're a failure as a person. You're not a failure as a person. You're a failure as your practice in Columbus, Ohio, in these conditions on this street didn't succeed financially. Now, why? You might have been the 11th dentist in a 1 mile stretch. That was a bad idea to put a practice there. You might have overfinanced it. You might have done, there's 1,000 things. But I always say at the end of the day, you're still a dentist. You still have your degree. You still have your license. Go be a dentist somewhere else. You're not a failure as a dentist. Go be an employee. a lot of people just aren't cut out to be practice or business owners, much less practice owners. So that's kind of how I sort of phrase that. But I think a lot of people get hung up in that failure mentality, not the learn from something I shouldn't have done. And I figure if I get through a day, Bill, and I got 80% wins and 20% stuff I should have known better, it's a pretty good day.
I agree. Every day is not a perfect day, but it's going to be a better day than yesterday.
Yes. Yes.
What about motivation? What gets you up in the morning and puts you into the drive?
I like to see things built and come together. I have good friends. In fact, I have a good friend who is a big wheel at a Fortune 100 company. And I tease him that, his whole job is going in and moving things from this side of the desk, putting some initials on it, moving it to that side of the desk. And he'll tease me and say, "Oh, no, I have an assistant for that." And he loves that. And he's done it for 35 years. I'd jump off a bridge if I had to do that. He makes extraordinary money, more than most dentists. And he will say he feels held captive by that job. He can't leave. And my wife, Paula, whom you know, she was a Fortune 100 exec for a long time. You are held captive by a really, really, really nice paycheck and options and bonuses. And for me, I can't, it's not the security, it's I'm in this thing where I really can't make an impact. If I see something here in this business and we're building things like we're building a new practice builders mastermind. And it's because the dentists that I watch struggle that shouldn't be struggling. They think the solution is way up here and they need to go back to college again, an MBA. And the solution is a lot of times little nuts and boltsy things you just have to do every day. And so what I want to be able to do is communicate that starts working. Rising tide lifts all ships. They're now better practice owners. They love us. They share that. And my advertisers get, are more successful because my readers are more successful. And I've built that. So when it gets to the point of operating and running, I'll hire an editor for a particular area, or we'll hire somebody to do a segment that is now, we figured it out. We've made it routine. We know the formula, and now we can pass it off. And somebody may do, it's no different than hiring an associate. They may do 80% as good as you. They may do 75% as good as you, but that's good. Nobody's going to do 100% as good as the owner. And you have to be good with that 75. So my job every day is, okay, here's a thing that we're struggling with. We're bumping a little bit. In the lab world, the last 10 years, it's spent a lot of money on a lot of expensive equipment, 3D printers and CAD CAM systems and that sort of thing. That's really my only role. How does technology help do what we're going to do? Supply of lab techs is dwindling. Denture techs, I think dentures will be made chairside almost exclusively in the next 5 years. So how do we adapt to that? Whereas a person who runs the business just comes in, does it every day, and is suddenly surprised 5 years from now when they start losing business. And it's because of a technology that really started 5 years ago to take hold. So internally, it's just get up and make things, keep things moving forward, keep things growing.
Your magazine, The Profitable Dentist, what would be the motto of the company?
I've heard of it. We got tons of copies here. My favorite one.
That guy.
We got a handsome guy. Here's our cover guy. What we say is we're dentist's leading resource, and we champion the dentist owner. So anything that champions a dentist owner. And what I mean by that, Bill, is I break it down into 3 different segments. There are non-dentist owners, especially today. And this is all a recent phenomenon, last couple of decades. Right where I live in right here outside of Louisville, Kentucky, the fastest growing dentist owner is a guy who worked 2 years as a salesperson for Henry Schein. Graduated from Ball State with an accounting degree and said, this doesn't seem to be difficult at all. I don't know why dental practices are struggling. So he now has about 18 practices, $23 million valuation, and he's been doing it 3 whole years, for crying out loud. And down the street, you got dentists who have been trying this for 30 years and can't get an associate to come in and grow their practice over $1 million in production. And so that is that mindset that I want to help nurture in dentistry. And that's kind of the piece of the business that I think what we focus on when we mean the dentist owner. So that's a non-dentist owner. The dentist who works for them, or the dentist who works for a large DSO, they don't need to know about how taxes work or how to deal with employees or what to do during a COVID shutdown, or how to manage staff and hire the right staff. And they don't need to know any of that. They show up and do dentistry. So my message in The Profitable Dentist is really not directed at them. We have clinical content, but there are really good clinical issues and publications that will help with that. So that's who we focus on, is dentist owners. And then there's just large DSO owners who are MBAs and have no connection with dentistry whatsoever.
So it sounds like the model is, first, learn how to scale.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly,
even if you don't learn how to scale, it's important for a practice owning dentist to understand that there is a model. They just don't know how to look for it. So I speak a lot on mindsets, and dentists have this left brain mindset. It's very protocol driven, step by step by step by step. And they spent 4 years at it in dental school, and then they spent however many years in practice, and they manage what's in front of them. They manage the resources that are in front of them, and then they manage them in a methodical manner. And that's awesome if you want to be the dentist. And if you want to work for, again, a large DSO, and you get that down to an amazing routine, they will pay you well. If you want to own your own practice, you come in today and your office manager quit. There's no textbook that tells you what to do with that. There's no protocol. There's suddenly, your heart rate doubles and you get lightheaded and you scramble, and it takes 6 months to recover, because now you got to find somebody you trust again. Your lead hygienist leaves and goes up the street for $2. Do you overpay that person? Because now that you overpaid her $2, the other 3 hygienists say, awesome, raise time for everybody. And you really just want to see patients, and you have to deal with that. So in dentistry, the model is understanding you got to balance both. Because my guy that worked for Henry Schein and now has 18 practices, he has a clinical committee, and all he does is buys them dinner and says, when we're done, you guys have a protocol manual that says how we're doing extractions. End of story. But he didn't have, while they were doing that, he's worried about where to take the entire team on a beautiful vacation this year, a cruise or an all-inclusive. That's all he has to worry about. So the model is understanding that you do both. You build it and you run it. And that's very, very, very difficult.
I like it. Now, tell me about, if somebody's looking to be a client of yours, what do they actually have as an offering? What do you sell people when you're consulting or when you're bringing them into the magazine? Tell us something about what you offer.
So we really break it down for, and we have 2 audiences. We have the consuming audience who reads it. And again, it's not hard and fast, but it's about 60-70% practice management and ownership skills. And the rest is clinical, because you went to dental school. And as a dentist, I'm not a dentist, but my dentist friends I always say, they nerd out on some little procedure and they get so excited and they love it. And then they love to go back and do it. And that keeps you enthused. So you don't want to lose that. But at the same time, I'd like to see that enthusiasm go over to the practice management piece of it, which you have to do. So my audience is really the consumer who's going to read it and say, I love it, and I get value from The Profitable Dentist. And then the advertisers, and we vet them more carefully than most. We have a magazine. We have a lot of webinars. We have a lot of CE continuing education. We have a lot of content that we do for third parties. I look for two things. Number one is I want immediately impactful ideas. So, or products, something they, without an investment, and you lived through this. You don't have to buy $100,000 piece of equipment. I, Bill, I'm without naming names of, CAD CAM systems. A lot of people love them. I don't know how you spend 100 grand on this system and you get a $5,000 or $6,000 a month payment to cut your $3,000 your lab bill in half. So I spent 6 grand a month to save 1,500. So I am not a fan of those. I don't want practice owners. I wouldn't buy that. Let me put it that way. And I don't want to teach them to spend money on a gimmick that doesn't add bottom line. Our middle name is profitable. So if it's not adding profit, either new revenue or cutting costs, we tend to stay away from it. So number one is immediately impactful. A product, a procedure, anything that immediately puts money on your bottom line. You're spending less money on product A, or you're suddenly doing a particular treatment or billing for a particular treatment. These days with oral systemic health, there are a lot of treatments you've been giving away. And there are a lot of people that can teach you how to quit that. So in fact, I'm keynoting in an event in Florida this weekend, and it's how to bill medical insurance in a dental office. And I was shocked the first time I did this. And these people said, yeah, here's a group of dentists whose practice is billing for almost everything you do with implants, CBCTs, bone grafting, all these things that dentistry doesn't cover. So you find yourself not doing them because patient's insurance won't cover it. When here's a group of people billing $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year for treatments you're already either doing free or not doing at all because you won't get paid. So I look for somebody who can benefit a sole practice owner, a dentist owner, with that kind of thing, because I promise you, the big DSOs, they have a team of people doing this. They have a team of MBAs and project managers rolling this out to 200 offices. So as solo owners, I want to be the person that helps them. So, hopefully my audience says, wow, we're up $40,000 this year just because of one little thing I learned from the Profitable Dentist.
Steve, what's your ideal client? Who is it?
They are mid-size. We work with a lot of large companies, but they tend to be less engaged. They tend to have a lot of marketing people that just want to put an advertisement in. My ideal client gets their hands dirty. They show up at events with us. They do, they go on special events we have throughout Kentucky. And they get to know the practice owners and my readers and listeners and viewers, and they actually can help them that way. So my ideal client isn't just paying us to advertise. We're very, very, very connected in how they impact my readers. And my readers,
like the people on the pictures behind you, those people are your ideal clients.
Yeah, every one of them we know personally. We rely on them. They rely on us. Dentistry is a very small cottage industry profession. It's hard to reach out to the audience. There's not a dental channel on TV that dentists watch. So we've got to find a way to get through with less slick advertising, one-page advertising that is about brand building for a particular, it could be a material, or it could be a particular piece of equipment, or it could be whatever it is. They spend a lot of money to get you to know that may or may not have any kind of ROI whatsoever. But it looks good and you see it everywhere. So my ideal client is one that when I create that connection, that relationship, I get a letter back or an email back that says, thanks for introducing me to Dr. Bill Williams. Thanks for introducing me to Dr. Bill Williams. I'm now doing $10,000 a day in dentistry.
There you go.
That's my ideal client. Somebody that literally makes that kind of impact. I dug that out this morning, Bill. I walked in and I said, well, I should open that up and reread it. And these kind of books, by the way, you can read it once, but the third time you read it, I promise you're going to pick up more and more and more that you can implement right now in your practice. So for me, that's an ideal client. Somebody that has a lasting impact.
Well, I noticed that all the people on the wall would be people I've learned from, people who have impacted my career. As we go through this thing, the best ideas rise to the top, and a lot of them are brought to the profession through the Possible Dentist magazine. So, yeah, it's been an important part of our growth, and I appreciate being part of your cadre. It's always been a pleasant and enjoyable association, of course. And I'm glad we can
Thank
continue
you.
on the Influencer podcast, bringing you not just to the dental profession, but to 200 countries around the world. Hundreds of thousands of
Mm.
people seeing this podcast will say, "Who is Steve Parker?" And now they'll know who helped
Awesome.
me become the dentist I am. So, hey, it all
Yeah,
goes around, comes
well,
around.
thank you. Thank you.
How do you find your ideal client? Are you seeking them or are they seeking you?
Both. We get so at the end, everybody's for the advertising side, not the reader side. For the advertising side, at the end of year, people have budgets, and 2022 was one of our best years ever. 2023 will be our best year ever. It is up dramatically in clients. So what's happening for us is ideal clients used to be, Henry Schein with probably spending 10 or 12 or $20 million on branding. So they're buying ads, they're sponsoring booths, they're pushing a lot of salespeople out, and they have products to sell. And those are good clients if you're just a magazine. We tend to dig deeper. Again, I want the person on the cover, and you'll notice we put people on covers. We started doing that a few years ago because I want that person to have, some impact. So my ideal client is somebody that isn't just paying me to advertise, but they're paying me to be involved. So they may come on a event we have. We do we're starting to do more traveling networking events. Could be a Kentucky Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, could be a cruise, could be a dude ranch, but they're more networking events. I want people who say, not just, I want to write you a check so you can put our logo around the event, but somebody who says, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it every month. We're doing supporting ads in the magazine. We're doing a lot of dynamic ads online. We have a spokesperson. We want your audience to know our people and our product that way. And so we like a lot of interaction. The people who just write checks, we'll be glad to cash the checks. It's still America. As long as they pay in American dollars, I'm a happy guy. But the ones that we enjoy most are the ones that we interact with most. So, in fact, we were at an AOSH, American Academy for Oral Systemic Health meeting this past weekend in Columbus, Ohio, and had the best time with our sponsors. They had a best time. I think we had 130 attendees. Everybody got to know everybody. So my ideal clients want to be there and meet them, not just write a check and, have a banner up. And then my readers are somebody who's teachable. They understand where they are in their practice journey, and they understand that they've committed to being a dentist owner, not just a dentist, but they own the darn thing. Especially after COVID, everybody learned they're an owner. They have to decide what to do: stay open, close down, take PPP money, don't take PPP money, let employees go, keep them. Stuff you don't learn in dental school. So I want those people. They're my ideal client in that they get value from my ad clients or my sponsor clients or my supporting clients. So my job's to be the person in the middle. I'm just bringing them together.
You've got other magazines out there, other
Mhm.
consultants, Dentistry Today, Dental Economics, some of them. How do you trust that competition?
So we do, and I know all those people, love them. They're very good. I always say we're different. Um, it's steak and lobster. Which one's best? I don't know. Sometimes I like steak. Sometimes I like lobster. Sometimes I like surf and turf. But you have to decide what's best for you. What we do different, and I get this question a lot, Bill, is Everybody who's in this, every one of these issues, here is our, here's a good buddy, Dave Phelps. Dave Phelps does finance. Everybody in our finance issue is somebody who does it and lives it. Not a company sending me some ads; those are in there, but it's KOLs, key opinion leaders in dentistry, whose real voice is in here. Oral systemic health issue. In fact, this is brand new, off the press, Bill. Nobody's seen this but you.
All right. All right.
These are, every article is from actual dentists in this issue, a lot of physicians that are doing it and living it. It's harder for us to curate. We got to do a lot of editing because, you know, they're a great dentist. They're an okay writer. That's fine because that's the content I want. A lot of the other magazines are owned by a media company. So they might print dentistry, I don't know, we'll make up one, dental, you know, the Dental World. And they're all good people, so I don't want to dig on any of them. Dental World magazine. They also print Volunteer Firefighter World, and they print Plumbers World, and they print, you know, they're a magazine company, and they have a salesperson who is selling ads into the magazine for dentistry. And on Tuesdays, they sell ads into the magazine for Veterinarians Today. And and the writers, a lot of the copywriters are really good copywriters, and they write what they think they know about dentists. And, you know, they think dentists are this, you know, wow, these people have a, 200-point IQ, and, you know, they do all, and they've got all these degrees. And my experience, most dentists are really good at dentistry, and they lay awake at night scared to death that they got this big bill from the IRS that says you owe $86,000 for 941 deposits your office manager forgot to make, except, you know, he or she quit 2 weeks ago because they were stealing $50,000 from you and all this junk. So I want to speak with a voice that says, yeah, everybody in here, they've been through that. Not a young copywriter straight out of Indiana University who's really good with the copywriting, but can't connect with the fears of an average practice owning dentist. So that's how we separate ourselves, is we're very hands-on with practice owning dentists. That's our audience. And we don't make assumptions that this is what they need. We listen to what they need and include them. They're our contributors.
It does seem like you're the magazine for the everyman dentist, the one who is in the trenches every day. And I've read these magazines in dentistry and had the consultants in my office throughout the 46 years. And I always found the profitable dentist was more down to earth and had useful information. So when you talk about the 5-star client experience, when they read your magazine, it's like, this is meaningful material.
Right.
So how do you deliver and find these unique contributors?
So we will, one of the things we've always done really well, even our Destin events, is we are always looking for talent unofficially. And we're always looking, you know, my belief is, and Dr. Woody Oakes' belief was, if you just bring people together, you know, they'll figure the stuff out. So I always tell the story, if, you know, Dr. Rick Workman started Heartland on the patio at our Destin seminar. And he was sitting looking across the room. He's told this story a million times. He's sitting at our event, the Destin Spring Break Seminar, looking across a room of 1,200 dentists who hate running their practice. They love doing the dentistry, but they're sitting there learning about about embezzlement and how to manage taxes and how to manage employees and how to get through all these things. And they hate it. They don't want to know that. They want to show up and do some dentistry. And Dr. Workman looked across and said, and I don't know if you know his story, but he got an agriculture degree. His dad was a farmer, very nice man. He's since passed, but very nice man. And his dad said, Rick, farming is hard. You need a backup plan. So he went to dental school And he comes back and he never really liked doing the dentistry, but he loved the business. So sitting there on our patio, he talked to a guy and said, how about we do this? I'll charge you X% of what we grow your business, and I'll take on all that. I'll let my staff do all that. And you just come in and do the dentistry. And that was like Heartland practice number one. And from there, it grew out and out and out. But if he hadn't been sitting there looking at this sea of people who complained about the practice ownership part, it never would have occurred to him. So our 5-star experience is to bring practice owning dentists together with solutions providers, we'll call them, consultants. And there are as many different consulting firms and strategies as consultants. Bring them together. And out of that, the 5-star experience is you walk away meeting somebody that you really like and works for you. So, and I try not to judge it. I have some good friends, Rick and Dave Maddow, both kind of retired-ish. And I would say, if you're a 55 or 60-year-old dentist, sort of like me, and, you like the music, you like the Stones or you like the Beatles, you will love Rick and Dave. You're just going to connect. But there are some 32-year-old consultants who, personally may not connect in the same way. So I think my job is to bring them all together and let them find each other. And it seems to work pretty well. So my 5-star experience is bringing the right people together and just letting magic happen.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been part of Rick and Dave's program, Woody's program, your program. You do bring people together, and
Mhm.
I'm grateful for that. Tell us what you're grateful for today.
I am grateful. I've always felt grateful every day. I have, again, I think it's easy to get knocked down by stuff that happens, especially as an entrepreneur, that you're not prepared for when, in my experience, when you went to dental school. I'm grateful to get up and get to do what I do. There are some days that I'm still grateful to do it, but a lot of stuff didn't go. The end of the day wasn't where I thought we would be. But I'm grateful I get to get up tomorrow and do the same thing. So I get a chance to prove things work, put things together that wouldn't exist without me. At the end of the day, a business, I don't know anything about making a crown bill, but I do know that I've got a lot of really good people who come in every day. They love it. More power to them. My job is to support them. They, support their families. They support the community. They pay taxes. They're just good people and we take care of them. Those are things that, I started the business. It wouldn't exist without me. There are businesses I've sold that literally wouldn't exist, that now have, 150, 200 employees, that wouldn't have jobs there if I hadn't said, hey, let's get this thing going. So every day I'm grateful to have the opportunity to figure out something, figure out a need and fill it.
You did say that you're a revenue generating machine. You like to do startups and
Yeah.
create things. So you ever have to convince Paula to let you go ahead and be free to do that?
Early on, and we're a good balance. She comes from a corporate background. So everything is, here's a project, here's the money, here's how we're going to do it. We've thought about it. If we were doing if the company she worked for, Fortune 100 company, was doing this magazine, Bill, it'd take, I don't know, 75 people and half a year and $2 million of budget. That's how the corporate world works. And there's a lot of security in that. It's hard to make a mistake when you got that many people, but it averages. So what do they say? A camel is a horse designed by committee. So you get a lot of camels. What we get to do is something new and interesting, and that makes her nervous, and she will admit that, but she sort of has this faith that, in defining the success of things. So she's a good balance for me to say, let's think about this. And I'm a good balance for her to say, we've thought about this. Just pull the trigger and see what happens. And if it's a disaster, We know not to do that again. And here's what went wrong. If it's a success, we know what to keep and what to build on. But that's, I think you got to have that balance in personality, or it could get way. If she had my personality, we'd be way off the track. Who knows where we'd be now?
Now, if you're talking business and you're talking paid digital media, these ads in Facebook, Google, or LinkedIn, do you think they would play a role? Have they in your growth of your company?
Yes, no question. So we spent years where we were in the mail every 10 days. Bill, we spent millions on postage, millions on printing. You've probably gotten the cards, and a little card that says, here's a course on atraumatic extraction, fill this out, $179, and a DVD shows up, in your mailbox, less than a week. That's how we communicated. And then we started mailing a magazine, started out a newsletter. Then there were ads. Now it's a magazine with a bunch of other stuff. That was a pipeline between us and consuming, practice owning dentists. That's very expensive, extremely expensive. So whoever's paying for it needs to really want to talk to that dentist. As the world has evolved digitally, a couple things happen. One is those pipelines just don't work anymore. Dentists, when I got in this business, dentists were getting an average of 27 pounds of mail every week in their office. My little card. So then it became competition to get my little card noticed. And it's hard to do when there's 40 other people doing that. You've gotten the mail, or you didn't get the mail because it got stopped at the front desk and ended up in the circular filing bin under the office manager's desk. So it got wasted sending to you. You never knew about it. We bump into each other at the Hinman, and, I say, hey, we're doing this thing. And you say, well, I didn't know about it. Well, I've mailed you, I've spent $20 mailing you over the last 3 months. So that connection stopped working. And then along came Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, and we spent about 3 years building magic with those audiences. So there are some things you can do, especially in the dental market. We have very, very, very high engagement rates. I would, it's our 11 herbs and spices, but I can tell you that we will spend less because of our industry, spend less and produce multiple times more engagement than most people in this industry.
That's interesting.
Pardon?
That's very interesting. And based on your experience, is that a percentage of revenue you recommend people put into the digital paid media?
Like a practice owner?
Yeah.
I don't. It's such a small percentage, to be very candid with you, that most dentists, it's time and it's commitment. It's so and so's assigned it. Monday morning we do a post, and that's that. And then we have maybe paid media to generate connections, or we do in our practice, we do a little net provider scores. We do a little something that says, hey, if you enjoyed your visit, click here and give us a thumbs up. And there are people in the industry who do that very well. But at the end of the day, that is a good brand building way that doesn't cost much money. Again, you're not trying to reach millions. You're trying to reach, in your dental practice, hundreds, probably. A big practice, a few thousand. And they will stay engaged as long as you have something to say. And I think too many dentists struggle to have something to say. A post is going to live, 90 minutes. So just show them you got, how the orchid flowered this past week. Show them how, you painted the bathroom, or, somebody finally came and trimmed the hedges, or it really doesn't matter what it is, as long as it shows their brand of somebody they trust. You're the dentist, and they see something's happening with you, and it keeps you top of mind as their dentist, and they can connect with you. Mary Jane's pregnant, anything. And what I see in social media is people work too hard for a post that's going to last 90 minutes. It's going to live that long. Even if you revive it, or your boosting posts, they're only going to live so long. So there's too much production value going into something that lasts this long. And when the key is, I'd rather get a lot of engagement on a clumsy post, maybe even with a misspelling, than I will no engagement on a perfectly polished post. So understand your intention, and it really is the engagement, and just do something till figure out what works and keep doing that.
Gotcha. Good advice. Hey, if you're talking to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell your young self to do, knowing what you know now?
Bill, I'm 61. I'm looking at retirement. You know, you and I have talked before about this kind of thing. I would probably tell my 20-year-old self, um, don't take life too seriously too soon. I all of my kids have gotten, you know, some are a little shaky, but I think just this generation takes life too seriously too soon. And, you know, as we have kids, and our kids are all moved out, and they're, you know, from 23 to 26, 5 of them, we'd go back and tell them something different. We would say, I don't know, go to Alaska and work on a lobster boat for a summer. Go to Key West and, you know, scrub decks or something for a summer. Do something that's mindless, and you meet people and you interact with people, and you got to show up, and you got to have a crappy boss, and you got to have, you know, grumpy customers, and you got to learn that junk that you learned once you spend all this time in college, come out and realize you don't want. I see way too many people come out of stick with their plan, come out and, you know, want to pick it up 20 or 30 years later. I would just flip it. I would say, set a time frame, 25. You aren't doing anything until 25. And then just, I don't know, just do stuff. And I think what you gain from that is greater than what you're going to gain trying to stay on this rigid track that too many people at mid 40s figure out, what the heck am I doing? How'd I get here? You got here incrementally because you never stopped to say, where'd I want to go? And if you're wrong, change it then. You know,
I don't know if I actually heard your advice back when I was 20, because I'm older than you by about 15 years. But I did the backpack through Europe for 10 weeks after college, before dental school. And the get away from it all was a great break from college before buckling down and getting serious again. So I think that's great advice. What about what you want to be remembered for, Steve? I think your microphone went off. Is your mic not on? Well, we got Steve Parker, and we finally found a way to close him down. We can't hear him anymore. The microphone's back. There you go. Welcome back. Well, I can't hear you, Steve. I don't know what's going on with the microphone. We're kind of sitting in dental la la land, podcast heaven. So I guess what we'll do.
How about now?
Now you've got it.
There's the green. I'm just switching to a whole different microphone. So, and I don't know if you edit out. If not, people can watch me talk. My wife would love that. I would say that my number one piece of advice used to be the first person there and the last person to leave. And I've seen docs add $40,000 to $50,000 a month in production just by being on time, just showing up. It's not rocket science. If you're sliding in 10 minutes late, the patients know it, your team knows it. Everybody's saying, hey, Mrs. Jones, have another magazine. And, while we wait for the doc. So I want to be known as somebody who gave a simple thing that changed a practice for somebody who shouldn't be struggling to begin with. They're making being a practice owner too hard. And suddenly they find simple things, they get into a groove, they become comfortable, and they can retire and sell their practice and be successful. And it's stuff that I've learned over 40 years. And it is really, business. I always say people buy from people. It's that simple. So be somebody you'd want to buy from. And if not, still be friends and move on. But I want to be a person that people can walk away from and say, well, there is no secret sauce. It's just kind of do the regular stuff. And, Parker taught me that.
Absolutely so. Well, I think you're a very memorable guy. We've known you for so many years, and I thank you for being on our show. I want to give you a chance to say what you think about being on the Influencers podcast, speaking to an audience that's mostly non-dentist.
Right. And I think that's probably what I would say, Bill. It's interesting what you have going on here is every industry has people that that almost get in their own way. They just make it too hard. And I know that's easy to say and hard to do. But I think what I am watching you do, because I've watched several of your podcasts, I love when they're on. You have a very broad spectrum of people who have all lived it, done it, learned from it, and are now willing to share, the stupid thing they did. And here's the number one thing I learned here. Don't do that again. Or here's the thing I did, and I was shocked that my production went up, or my customer base went up, or I added 9 customers, and I thought nobody would want this. And I think what it does is give somebody who's watching a little bit of confidence to just step out and do it. So my final word is just watch. I love what you're doing. Just step out and do it.
That was a good, short and sweet final word. Just step out and do it. I do appreciate you stepping in and being our main guys today. And it's been a pleasure. Always good to see you from Louisville, Kentucky.
Likewise.
Steve Parker, the Profitable Dentist Magazine.
Bill, thanks. See you soon.
All right. You guys take care, and we'll see you back up in Louisville before you know it. Thank you guys for being on the Profitable Dentist webinar with Steve Parker. And we will say the Influencer podcast with the Profitable Dentist Magazine is a union of 2 people that have known each other for about 20 years. So we had an unfair advantage over the audience, being able to pick at each other and to support each other in ways. It's a real pleasure to be on Steve's podcast. I was on his podcast a couple of years ago, been on the cover of his magazine, and he's always a gracious host. He's had us up to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail tour, which his wife puts on, a very interesting time to spend with KOLs in the dental community. And so I want to highly recommend the Kentucky Bourbon Tour for those who are interested in learning the details of how that whiskey is made. Now, Steve, thank you for being on, and we're going to have another broadcast coming up soon today. So I want to say thank you, audience, for being on the Influencers podcast, and we see you soon. Stay tuned.